You're listening to The Monetized Mom, the podcast that teaches moms of faith how to monetize their expertise online to create influence, impact, income, and more importantly, financial independence. I'm your host, Flo Alexander. Let's chat. Hey, Money Mamas. Welcome to the Monetized Mom podcast. I'm your host, Flo Alexander, and in this week's episode, we're going to be talking about using discernment in business. So if you're interested in learning more, stay tuned. Now, before I get started, I want to share a free resource with you. The Monetized Mom Master Playbook is my 4-part framework for turning your expertise into a profitable online business. And yes, you heard right, it's free. You can grab it now at themonetizedmom.com/freebie. Again, that's themonetizedmom.com/freebie. Now let's get on with this episode. So this is another kind of unplanned episode. I honestly was just sitting down after breakfast thinking about this topic, and I felt led to share my thoughts around using discernment and just overall being spirit-led in business. So I know I talk a lot about the tactical side of business, but there's also a faith side of things that you need to know how to navigate. And if you want to be successful and reap all of the benefits of the hard work that you're doing, you need to be spirit-led in your business. So this honestly just means seeking God and also heeding to what you're hearing. And it also means using discernment as you navigate opportunities and relationships within business. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to share my own stories of being obedient to God and also not so obedient, and how those two different instances impacted my business and the way that I navigate. So I honestly believe that at the end of the day, God wants your business to be successful. Your success will allow you to impact the people that He's assigned you to, and also allow you to be able to financially contribute to the building up of God's kingdom here on earth. Ultimately, that's what we want to do. We want to be kingdom builders in every aspect of our life, and business is one of those avenues that allows us to do that. So I think that God wants us to be successful in our endeavors. But in order for that to happen, we also have to be discerning. We also have to seek Him and heed His voice and the nudgings that we get so that we remain on the right path to be successful in our endeavors. So what do I mean by discernment? I just kind of laid it out for you guys. I mean using godly wisdom and being attentive to the nudging of the Holy Spirit when making decisions on opportunities, collaborations, and the direction that you should ultimately go in your business, the direction that you should take. And I want to say that this is not just applicable to business. This is applicable to your everyday life. You should be spirit-led in everything that you do, discerning in everything, seeking wisdom, and seeking God on everything that you do, not just in your business, but obviously we're talking about business today. So I actually want to share 2 stories where being discerning and literally listening and heeding the voice of God has been beneficial to me in business. So the first time was back in 2020, at the very beginning of the pandemic. So this was before we knew what in the world was happening, before we had any, information on the virus. And I remember I was writing a blog post for my site. And out of nowhere, I got an idea to write a post about having a virtual baby shower. Now, at the time, well, I can't say it was completely out of nowhere. At the time, I was pregnant, and our second baby shower, I know, first world problems, but our second baby shower with my husband's side of the family had gotten canceled because of COVID, because no one knew what was happening. And it was just, you guys remember, it was a crazy time. So we were considering doing something virtual. So I was like, well, why don't I just write a blog post about this? And so I wrote an article outlining, how you can have a virtual baby shower, how you can plan one, some of the resources that I had looked into and checked out. And I was really kind of dragging my feet on actually publishing it. And then I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a Sunday. I was sitting there. I think I was kind of editing it. and finagling around. And I just remember I got a strong nudge saying, like, you need to post this today. You need to post it today. So I listened. I posted it that day. I finished doing whatever I was doing to it, posted it that day, went through my process of sharing it on social media, on Pinterest, and all those outlets. And that one blog post literally blew up and exploded my site and my business. And when I say that it really was the start of me seeing real significant sustainable income in my business. Like, I have been working the online space for a while. I have been making, I've been making income. I had made money before then, but that year or that blog post really just catapulted the business. And I remember getting featured in like different websites, like big publications. My article was ranking on Google higher than a lot of your mom websites or mom magazines and that type of stuff. And I was able to get like my first brand collaboration. Well, it wasn't my first brand collaboration. I would say like my first major-ish kind of brand collaboration from literally just that article. And literally it just came from being obedient. One, to the nudging of, hey, you should probably write an article on this. No one was talking about virtual baby showers at the time, which was the crazy thing about being obedient and listening to the nudgings of God is he will give you divine insight on things and when to do things at the right time. For me, literally, I could not replicate the timing on when I posted that and how essential it was because no one had been talking about it up until that point. And I just happened to write an article about it, and the world happened to get shut down, and people just happened to be pregnant who wanted to have baby showers, and they used my article as a major resource. And so that's the importance of listening and seeking God, because he can really give you divine insight and timing on things that no one else is doing. You may think it's crazy, but God, obviously, he supersedes time and he knows what's going to happen. So he can tell you to do something at a time where it's going to be beneficial for you and ultimately beneficial for the kingdom. And so that was one of those instances. And so it was kind of like, okay, well, was a success. Now let's piggyback on it with another article related to it. When I tell you guys, those two articles that I did related to virtual baby showers have made me so much money. When I tell you a little article, me sitting on the couch on a Sunday pregnant, deciding that I was going to share something that, we have been thinking about, literally has catapulted my business, and we haven't looked back since. So that was a definitely a positive instance, a great example of listening to God and heeding his nudgings and doing things when he tells you to do, and being obedient. So that was just not too long ago, guys, not too long ago. So being obedient to that one thing that seemed so small and insignificant was the turning point literally in my business. And that's, again, why it's so important to stay in tune with what God is telling you to do. And not only in tune, but to seek direction about what to do. So anyway, and I will add a caveat to that. You got to be working for God to give you direction. I remember I had a pastor that always said that God doesn't speak to a parked car. I was already doing the work. Like, I was writing articles and I was doing the work. And as I was doing the work, God gave me that wisdom and that revelation to do this specific thing and to do it at this specific time, which obviously changed the direction of the business. So you need to be doing something. Don't sit around not doing anything and be like, well, God, tell me what to do. No, do something and then ask for direction, and God will give you direction. It's kind of like GPS. Like, GPS is not going to tell you where to go until you start making moves. And once you start making moves, you're able to navigate from that position. So you need to be doing something, just as an FYI, for God to give you direction on what to do next. Okay. So that was obviously an example of me being obedient. But there was also a time when God had to save me from my disobedience. And that actually wasn't too long ago, surprisingly. So I actually had someone reach out to me for a collaboration. And if you all know me, or you may or may not know me very well, I'm very particular about who I share a platform with, who I collaborate with, which is why you on my podcast, very few interviews. I remember my first podcast, I started out with interviews, and then I had to pump my brakes because I was just like, all these people ain't who they who they say they are on social media. So I got very particular about who I share my platform with and who I want it to be associated with. I don't want to be associated with people who don't have, good moral character and that type of stuff. So I'm very particular. But for some reason, in this particular instance, I was quick on the yes. I don't know what came over me. I don't know what I was thinking that day, but I was quick on the yes. For someone that I did not know, that had just reached out to me. We had someone in common that we knew. So that was kind of the basis of the relationship, but nonetheless, I said yes. And I immediately knew that it was not the right decision. It wasn't necessarily a bad decision, but it wasn't the right decision. And it wasn't like the person did anything like overtly wrong or there was something obvious about their character that was going to be a red flag. But it was just one of those situations where even though it wasn't overtly wrong, it just wasn't the right situation for me, if that makes sense. Where things aren't necessarily bad, but they just aren't good for you. It was one of those situations. But at that point, it was kind of too late to back out. We had already made arrangements. Plans were in motions. And I literally just prayed like, Lord, let things go well. And God was like, no, no. You should have stuck with your normal process and you should have said no. And I kid you not, literally the day that we were supposed to do things for this particular collaboration, for this project, I got a message from that person saying they could not do it because of an emergency. I kid you not. And usually I'm a stickler for my time. Like, do not waste my time. Do not schedule something and not show up. I've had people do that before. I will block you and you will never have access to me and my time again. But at that moment, I was like, look at God. I was like, look at God. I wasn't upset. I wasn't mad because I knew I had lived through enough to know when God was saving me from myself. I literally knew like, okay, God, I'm not even going to argue about this. I'm not going to worry about this. I know that you are protecting me for something. And again, this person did not seem overtly bad, but I understand that God obviously sees things that we don't see. And my understanding of this is that God probably saw that this collaboration and this association with this person may not be in my best interest down the road. And so he literally stopped it in its track. Not saying that the emergency was something that was good. Obviously, it was an emergency. Nonetheless, it happening the time that it did was God's way of protecting me from that situation and putting myself on a platform with someone, again, not necessarily bad, but just not right for me and what God had for me. And so I think it's so important to, even in that situation, I could have like fought for it and be like, oh, yeah, let's reschedule this. Let's do it later. Let's push it back or whatever. And I was just like, yeah, we'll get to it. I got some other things that I'm doing right now. I literally did. I wasn't lying. Like I literally had some other things. And the day that we had planned on was like the day that I could do something. And so I was like, I got some other things. Let me hit you back later. I hit back later and I was just like, look, I'm past what we were going to do. It's not the direction I'm going in anymore. And so we just have not reconnected. And so I think when God shows you that and God kind of saves you from yourself, you also have to not try to go back and bang down that door that's already been closed. So that's a part of the discernment as well. Recognize that, okay, God saved me from this situation. Therefore, I'm not going to go back and try to open that door. I'm going to move forward because obviously he took me out of that situation for a reason. So I can't emphasize that enough. Be prayerful in your business. Literally ask God what you should do next and go with what gives you the most peace. Ask God who to work with and to send the right people in your path. I'd always pray, and I still pray this, for God to send me divine connections. And that's what I have received, honestly. So pray for divine connections and meetings with people, with the right people who can help you on your journey in your business and in your life as well. Pray for the right opportunities to come your way and be okay with saying no to the wrong ones. Again, I think it's important to understand that when God closes the door, it's not our job to go back and try to bang that door down, but it's our job to receive what God has given us, accept it, move on, knowing that He has greater opportunities and something more aligned with what He has called for us to do with our lives. And so don't be bitter, don't be upset. Just take it for what it is and keep it moving. So I think a lot of times we get excited about opportunities within our business, and sometimes that we overlook that it could be the wrong opportunity. So remember that money is not everything. Also, sharing the sage with certain people who may be popular on social media is also not everything, okay? Remember that. And know that it's better to pass up on maybe a high paying deal or a high exposure opportunity that won't bring you peace in exchange for something that will bring you peace and will provide more opportunities later on down the road. So it's not always about the money. It's not always about the exposure or being connected to whoever is popular on social media at the time. Because let me tell you, people do fall. People do fall from fame, and it happens quite often. So in addition to that, being discerning, that is also a way of saying, like, protect your reputation as well. Everybody is not what they seem to be on social media. Every company is not what they seem to be. So be discerning and be mindful. Be prayerful in your business. Ask God to show you what to do. Ask Him to connect you to the right people. Ask Him to open the right doors of opportunity. And by faith, I guarantee it, you will receive those things that you ask. All right. So as always, if you found this episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe, share, and also leave a review. And with that, I will talk to you in the next episode.